Hello, and welcome to the From the Shadows podcast. I am the producer, Jason Lewis. I would like to thank you for tuning in to the From the Shadows podcast. And without further ado, here is your host, Shane Grove.
Hello, everybody. This is Shane Grove, the co-host of From the Shadows podcast. I'm here with Jason, the producer.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
And, we're going to introduce this episode here that you guys are going to be listening to. It's kind of a cool episode. Our guest was Isaac Best, telling us about a supernatural experience he had outside of Tiffin, Ohio, on, I believe, am I getting this correct, Jason? It's called the Legend of the Screamin' Mimi Bridge.
Yes, that is correct. It's right outside of Tiffin, Ohio.
Outside of Tiffin. So we think that'll be of a lot of interest to everybody, especially from the North Central Ohio listening area. And while you're listening to this episode, don't be afraid to get on our Facebook, our After the Shadows forum page on Facebook, our Instagram page, our Twitter, even go get on our YouTube channel, From the Shadows podcast YouTube channel. Subscribe to all those and let us know, number one, what you think of the episode, what do you think of Isaac's story, and share with us your story. I know Isaac isn't the only one in North Central Ohio that's got a story about going out to a haunted bridge. Wouldn't you agree, Jason? I mean, the more stories we hear, the more people tell us about their experiences. We want to hear some more experiences from our listeners.
Oh, definitely. I look forward to when people leave comments about our current episodes or just things that may be sparked by them listening to our episodes, and you might spark something that you remember that happened to you in the past, and we'd love to hear about it. And if you're comfortable with explaining it, you might end up being on the show one day as a guest.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I just talked to another lady from North Central Ohio, who I think we may have on a future podcast about some haunted experiences in her house. So don't be afraid. Reach out. This is a good place to tell your story, because that's what we want to hear is a good story from our listeners. Especially here in Ohio. So Jason, I guess we'll let the episode roll here and see what kind of feedback we get about our listeners' experiences themselves. So,
yeah, before you go, Shane, I can't reiterate enough. I want to tell our audience to like our Facebook page and go to YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Join the After the Shadows podcast forum. All of that, very important. We love to hear from you, and this is your forum as well as ours, and we are all of like minds, and we like to know what's coming from the shadows, and this is a place that we explore such things, and we have a lot of fun doing it. So don't be scared. Reach out and contact us. We love to hear from you. Okay,
yep.
Shane.
Yep. So Jason, we'll get a word from this week's sponsor, and then we will roll the episode. See you guys.
From the Shadows podcast, we'd like to welcome a new sponsor this week, Wise Funeral Home. Jerry and I are here visiting with owner David Wise because it's never too early to start planning. David will help you finalize your final plans. And Jerry, what are you doing now? We're looking at caskets, not getting in them. Get out of there. Well, I guess Jerry found one he liked. So stop on by Wise Funeral Home, and David can help you find one you like. Because like he always says, if you aren't dead when you get here, the prices will kill you.
There we good.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, Shane, we're going to get this episode started. Let's get it going.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and this is your host, Shane Grove of the From the Shadows podcast. We have a kind of cool episode tonight that's going to focus on some North Central Ohio lore. And before we introduce our guests, let's introduce the crew that's here tonight. Jason, you here?
Yes, sir, I am.
How about you, Judge? Are you here?
The judge is here, and I'm ready to talk about our guest's experience and some other like experiences in the state of Ohio.
Wow, so you've done your homework tonight. I'm very excited.
The judge has done his homework. You can read the judge's briefs.
As long as I don't have to wear the judge's briefs, it's perfect.
You wish.
And then we have our lead field researcher, Elisa, is with us tonight. Did I get the name right?
Yes, you did this time.
All right. So let's introduce our guest, one Mr. Isaac Best, who is calling us from Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois. How are you doing tonight, Isaac?
I'm doing good. How about you?
We're all anxious to hear your tale of
Well, we could go with his scary story that happened in Seneca County, or we could go with the scary story of being a Ohio boy going to Northwestern University. That sounds a lot more scarier, to be honest with you.
it does.
You know what? You're right about that.
It does. So, Isaac, before we get started, I do want to point out to everybody that you may be the smartest guest we've had on the podcast this far. So, I don't want you to feel any pressure to sound really smart, because none of us sound really smart. But so
I'll try to tone down the big words.
Tone down the words. Thank you very much. Thank
It's
you.
a very large lexicon, I'm sure.
So, Isaac, tell us why we asked you to come on the program tonight.
Well, I believe it is because of an incident that happened with me and a couple of pals of mine a couple years back on a notoriously haunted bridge in the backwoods of Seneca County, known as, to most people, Screamy Mimi.
Screaming Mimi.
Yeah, that's what I was always told it was called when I was a little kid.
And for those listeners out there who are in the area, and sometimes we have people will drive great distances to see these things. Can you give us a ballpark of where Screaming Mimi Bridge is?
I actually, if I had a map in front of me, I could point it out exactly, because it's on a small road off of County Road 15 in Seneca County, near the old Steyer Bridge, if anyone knows where that's at. It's in the area too. It's also supposedly haunted, but I don't have any stories about that bridge.
No, we're talking just outside of Tiffin, Ohio. Yes.
Yeah, just outside of Tiffin, Ohio, a little bit to the north on one of these back roads. You can't miss it because it's a bridge over a small creek right in between two hills. So it's really noticeable when you're going through the area.
Well, I'm looking at something that says Screaming Mimi Bridge is located in the northern part of Seneca County on East Township Road 148 near Morrison Lake, not far from Old Fort. Does that sound right?
That sounds about right, yeah. I can never remember the name of the actual road because that's not why you go to that road. You go there for Screaming Mimi.
Okay. So, Isaac, how old were you when you first heard about Screaming Mimi Bridge?
When I first heard about it, I'd say I was no more than 4 or 5 years old.
And what was your first memory of hearing about the bridge? What was going on out there?
My first memory is actually going over the bridge with my grandpa, because he would always use it as a way to get me and my brother, to quiet down in the car. You're like, oh, if you don't be quiet, Screamy Mimi will come out and get you.
I gotta be honest, that sounds terrifying for a kid.
Yeah, it was like just, something a grandparent and a parent would do in their car, like, or like in parenting in general, like, oh, if you don't do this, the monster will get you, like just a joking thing. So I didn't really give it much thought.
I gotta admit, that's fantastic parenting right there. That is fantastic.
It got us to be quiet, so yeah.
Put the fear of God in you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, my grandmother used to tell my brother and I, when we spent the night at her house, if we didn't behave, that raw head and bloody bones was going to get us. Apparently, and so years later, I looked it up, and there is a raw head and bloody bones from Tennessee folklore. So I didn't know what it really was, but it scared the crap out of me.
My grandma used to tell me that too when I was younger.
That just sounds like a terrible dog treat gone wrong for Marines back in the day. They thought that would be a great marketing campaign. It was just didn't go well.
Elisa, your next research project is raw head and bloody bones, so that we can give our listeners the history on it. So Isaac, let's go back. So when you were a young kid, you heard about it, but what was it that you were told? Who was Screaming Mimi, and what was supposed to happen on that bridge?
Now, when I was little, I really wasn't told that much about the legend. All I was told was that Mimi was a lady that supposedly died in some manner near or on the bridge. And as a kid, that was enough to scare me. Just knowing, oh, somebody died here? But as I got older, we would learn about Ohio folklore just through interactions with friends and family, or eventually my friends and I started looking up a lot about it, and that's when I started to really learn more about the legend.
Okay.
So Isaac, did it say anything about how Mimi may have died?
If I remember correctly, there's a couple of ways they say Mimi died, but they both revolve around her husband or husband-to-be, and him it was either killing her in the one scenario, and the other one was killing her baby, I think, or unborn baby, something along those lines. Granted, it's been like 2 years since I really looked into it, because my friends and I looked at it a lot before we went out there that night.
Okay, gotcha.
So as you were, before we get into the story, so the research that you did on it, were you ever able to really figure out if there was a true historical person tied to the bridge?
There wasn't any given, if you're looking for documents recording that was a real person. I never saw any of those.
Okay.
All I really saw was the legend itself, and that was sketchy at best from the sites I saw. And most of my information about occurrences there, or the actual acts supposedly, were from people I knew.
Okay, so no newspaper clippings or.
No, there was one online article I found, but it was just kind of a general overview of haunts of Ohio, and it had that in it.
Gotcha.
So I'm looking at some research that says the most popular version of the Screaming Mimi Bridge is that Mimi had a child out of wedlock, and she couldn't face the shame of that, so she threw the baby off the bridge. And then, obviously having buyer's remorse, she regretted it, and that she went insane, and now she returns at the bridge at midnight. Now, that seems like a pretty common theme, by the way, through other stories. But there's also one that says, that with Mimi says, another story is that Mimi came from a wealthy family, and her new husband beheaded her on their wedding night and threw her body over the bridge just so he could inherit her fortune. So those are really two totally different stories.
Okay.
That
Well,
second one
Yeah.
is the one that I remember resonating with me that night because of what happened.
well.
Okay,
then
so
let's
let's get into the story. Tell us what
Alright.
happened that night.
So I feel like a little bit of background on why we were even out there should be given.
Sure.
because you're
my
crazy
friends and I-
teenagers. Whatever.
Well, I mean, that's part of it, honestly. My friends and I had recently become part of what was kind of a craze around the town of just going on like little ghost walks or ghost adventures. So two friends of mine came with me that night. The one drove, the other one was just kind of there because he was really skeptical of any of this kind of stuff, and he kind of wanted to be there to prove us wrong. And we downloaded a bunch of apps over the course of 2 weeks beforehand that were supposedly like, oh, it has a little radar where it detects stuff near you, and then there was one where it supposedly would pull words from the static of radio that are supposedly from ghosts. And we were like, oh, well, what better place to try them out than on Screamy Mimi, because we all know something happened there. So we drove out there, which was really stupid considering it was the middle of the night, and I believe in December, it was a full moon, and it was just snowing like crazy. There was snow and ice all over the road. But we were like, this is a great idea, let's do it anyways. So we drove to the bridge and parked the car in the middle. We didn't really worry about anyone like driving through because we had checked it out a couple of times in the past half hour just to see how much traffic would go through that road, and there was no one. So we were like, all right, we're cool, we're safe to stop the car and do this stuff. So we pulled out all our apps and started trying to like listen, see if anything would happen. There was someone that had told us that you were supposed to put your keys on the roof of your car and get out if you wanted stuff to happen, but we weren't about to do that much. And so we sat there, and eventually we pulled out the Ghost Radio app because we were like, oh, well, why don't we just ask it some questions? That might be kind of funny. And so we started asking it. We pulled up the stories that you referred to and some other kind of stuff that we had heard and started asking questions about it, and the app kept getting the answers right. And that was kind of weird. We were like, oh, maybe it uses GPS, it knows that this is a haunted location, and the app just knows what to say.
Okay, so let me stop you there, Isaac. So
Yeah.
you would ask the app questions, and it was getting the answers right.
Yeah, like we were asking really simple, like yes or no questions at first, like up to this point, and it kept getting like yes, no, right according to the story that we had learned. Which was already kind of creepy, but we were like, oh, it just knows where we're at because it's a phone, it has a GPS. Like, we're not asking it anything detailed.
But you would be presupposing that the app knew the location you were at and knew that there was a paranormal story attached to that GPS location.
Yeah, because we assumed it's an app specifically for doing these kinds of things. It probably has areas programmed into it. Like,
gotcha.
And of course, you're probably searching on your
For an
phone
answer.
for the information anyway.
oh,
maybe.
yeah.
Okay.
So like,
So
you
That
know,
makes
then-
sense.
the phone.
So you yourself are skeptical of anything that's happening up to this point.
Up to this point, yeah.
Even though you're going out hoping to find something, you're still very skeptical that even what you're hearing or for yourself. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and the app would give these answers through like the static in a very monotone, like staticky yes or no. It sounded like when you do a text to speech with Siri or some other app. But then I was like, hey, we should, or I don't remember actually if I was the one that, I think one of my friends that was in the back seat was the one that suggested, he's like, hey, we should ask what or who killed her, because like in the one part or the one form of the story, like it's her new husband that kills her. And we're like, well, his name is Thomas. Like, this isn't a yes or no. It has to say a name. And in the creepiest, screechiest, high-pitched female voice, the app just screamed, Tommy.
Holy smokes.
Are you
And our eyes got huge, and my friend started the car, and it wouldn't start.
Oh my goodness!
First turn, and then he got it to go, and like his car had never done that before.
This is too good a story. So let's stop you there. So you had done research, and the research was that the husband that had killed Mimi's name was Thomas.
Yeah.
And then you asked the app who killed you, and you get this creepy voice that screams Tommy.
Yeah.
All right, that just gave me chills right now, and I'm not even sitting out on that bridge.
Yeah, just thinking about how I felt in that moment still gives me chills.
So it answered you in a different voice than what had been.
Yeah, that was what caught us most off guard. Was that the voice and the tone, because it was just kind of not really happy, but just kind of content, and then all of a sudden switches to this distraught, like angry voice.
So, in other words, as a young man, that was your first experience with a woman scorned.
Oh my gosh.
That was my first experience with a supernatural woman scorned.
And so then to complete the beginning of the horror movie, the car doesn't start right away. That's what you
Which it made no sense because it was practically a brand new car. I think a 2016 Fusion.
So the voice that was saying yes and no, was that a computer generated voice, a male's voice?
It sounded like a computer generated, like text to speech male voice.
Gotcha. And then when it responded in the screeching Tommy, you could discern that it was a female's voice?
It was either a female or just a very, very high-pitched male. But it definitely sounded female based on the pitch.
Okay. There's myths that screaming Mimi is like a banshee, so that's probably the scream you heard.
Oh, I feel like I have heard that, but I don't really know banshees. So
yeah. Alisa, why don't you fill our listeners in with what a banshee is?
A banshee is somewhat of a ghost, but they're more of a demonic ghost. They screech stuff to people once you find them or see them. They like to just pretty much scream at you. It's pretty creepy. And something I don't want to see.
That should make you feel better, Isaac, that it was a demonic ghost that was screaming at you. Not just a woman that had lost her head. Okay.
Totally makes me feel better. That's just not any run of the mill. It's a demon.
Yeah.
And at this point, I want to remind all of our listeners that Isaac is going to Northwestern University, so he's he's a very smart, clear-thinking young man. And so at that moment, I have to wonder, how clear-thinking and smart did you feel as you guys scrambled into the car that wouldn't start in the middle of a snowstorm? What was going through you guys' heads as you were trying to get out of there?
I know what was going through my head was, I knew this was a bad idea. Why did we come out here? What is happening? Go, go, go.
Listen, I got to be honest with you. The start of the story sounded a lot like some of the stuff that Judge and I did in our younger days, and now the end of it sounds like a lot of stuff.
All right, so Isaac, let's get to what happens next, because I think our listeners out there are going to be pretty scared. At least I am, knowing what you're about to tell us. So tell us what happened next.
So you'd think that was the worst part of it, but as I said, that story of her husband killing her really resonated with me, specifically for what happened next. which was as we're starting to get the car's starting to move, it's slipping on the ice a little bit, but it's moving forward. I looked behind us just instinctively. I felt like something was there and was watching us. And up on the hill, just barely illuminated by the car's rear lights, was just a shadowy figure. Looked like it was about as tall as you, Judge. About the same stature. Like,
Okay.
It just like a tall man holding something. Kind of, I don't want to speculate too much, but it kind of like a wood cutting axe, like that kind of size.
Holy smokes.
Like something like that big.
Well, let me ask you this.
Hello?
Judge, you still there?
Judge, you good?
I mean, I've heard of dramatic pauses, but come on, what's the deal?
Yeah, that's carrying it to another level.
No
It's
kidding.
screaming Mimi. She caught up to him, man.
So you look around and you see this figure up on the hill.
Yeah.
Like how long did you look? I mean, or did you just see it and be like, oh my god, I'm turning around and let's get out of here? I mean, what?
Like I turned around, looked out the back window, saw it, and it kind of disappeared as we skidded and took off up the hill.
So it kind of took off away from you.
It looked like it did as I was turning back around, but as we started to crest the hill, I looked back and it was down towards the bridge. Like
Also,
it looked as if it was moving towards us.
Now-
So it was actually coming towards the car.
It appeared to, yeah.
So once you guys got out of there and felt like you were safe, like did you pull over or did you just get to town and how was the ride into town?
Except for stop signs and some red lights, we didn't stop driving until we reached my friend's house. And then, even then, we sprinted inside and locked ourselves in a room.
Now, when you guys were pulling away, were you guys screaming? Be honest.
My friend that was driving didn't scream because he didn't look back and see it. But my friend and I, that were like the passenger in the back seat that saw whatever it was, we were screaming louder than I felt like I had ever before.
Were you like screaming like go faster, or what were you screaming?
Yeah, like screaming like there's something behind us, just go, don't look back, just drive.
Now you're
Let him speed out of there.
Now you're not currently dating anyone, are you, right now, that could hear this and totally change their mind about what kind of man you really are?
I'm not dating anyone right now. I'm in my room. There's no one listening except for whoever's listening to the podcast.
So did you guys then? So what time? This you said it was snowing. So this was January, February, something like that.
I think it was late December.
Late December. So at any time then,
Was it midnight when you were out there, though?
It was about midnight.
Okay. So you went there. You went there at the time the folklore said that if you're there, you could experience something on the bridge, and sure enough, you experienced something.
Yeah.
Now, when the weather got nicer, though, did you guys ever say, you know what, let's go back out and try this again and just see? I mean, did you follow up and see if maybe it was just, the app got lucky and screamed out the right name? I mean, did you guys ever go back and verify your findings from that first night?
Due to my friend's busy schedules, I haven't even been able to get those two guys together since that night.
So you guys are all chicken, is what you're saying. You guys are all scared.
Oh.
Now,
So,
I'm curious.
Is Jason? are you and Jerry prepared to go out to Screaming Mimi Bridge?
Yes, I'm prepared. Now I have a question about that figure that was chasing after you guys. Did you notice that it was like running after you, or did it just appear to be moving? Because you said you saw it, and then all of a sudden you seen it again at the other end of the bridge. I mean, was it just like reappearing out of nowhere, like in a ghostly fashion, or was it running like it was a mortal being coming after you?
It was. I never saw it actually run. I only saw it at a distance and then closer to the bridge, as if it reappeared.
Wow,
So
that's fascinating.
More of a floating spectral figure, you would say.
A spectral figure with an axe, though. I mean, you don't want to mess around with that.
I can't say for certain if it was an axe, but it was holding something in its hand that looked like that.
I gotta say, I'm jealous. I've been there, and nothing's ever happened.
Really?
I've been there tons of
Yeah.
times, and we had never had anything like this happen until
All
that
thing
time.
we did was scare the crap out of my cousin, though.
Is this elite? But were you at midnight?
Yep, we went at midnight. We did everything we're supposed to, and nothing.
So
Interesting.
Isaac, did you ever try those apps anywhere else to see if you could capture any kind of voice phenomena?
I think we used the Ghost Radio app one other time, but we used the radar, supposed radar ones a lot. Random cemeteries or older buildings around town. But
some of the folklore, the research I've done, and this goes to you, Elisa, that the ghosts, the screams, the whatever that is out there, only occurs near the anniversary of the person's death. So it's not something that you could go on any given night and hear, a baby cry or a lady wail or something like that.
Yeah, I
that
heard a scream.
The anniversary. So we don't really know with Screaming Mimi, assuming that she was a real person, was murdered.
Yeah.
We don't know what time of year it was that she was killed. Maybe Isaac had the dumb luck or the good fortune to be close to that anniversary date.
Yeah.
To basically get to experience something that probably very few people get to experience.
Yeah, I heard that too, because we live by Tiffin, and me and my aunt and my cousins like to go to haunted places, and it was like, okay, let's just go, because we had nothing to do, and I mean, everybody had different experiences, so I might try again when that time of year, maybe something might happen.
So Isaac, does this experience make you a believer in the paranormal?
I'd say it does more so than anything else I've had happen, because I've heard stories from friends about stuff happening. So I kind of, for most of my life, I've kind of thought that there was something weird going on in some cases, but I was always really skeptical. But now, like after I had that experience, I'm definitely more open to looking into these kinds of things.
Well, it kind of
just immediately saying, "Oh, that can't be true."
Yeah, it was kind of like me when I was a teenager, and my Dogman experience is that after you experience something like that, not only do you believe in that, but you also sit back and say, "Well, if that's real, what else is real?
Yeah,
what else is out there?"
Yeah, you can't possibly discount anybody's story, and
right,
because it wouldn't be. Then how do you expect anybody to buy into the story that you're telling, that you know is true, if you're just so easily going to discount somebody else's story? And
correct.
And we hear that quite a bit from people who have never experienced anything. Of course, they're not going to believe it. But then you hear people time after time again, and Isaac, you're not sitting here telling us, well, I know it was Screaming Mimi screaming at us through the phone, and I know it was Tommy running at us with an axe. You're just merely saying, hey, look, I went out there like a crazy person and called upon something, and something happened. Okay? And I think that's kind of the probably the mistake a lot of people make. You're not saying definitively what happened. You're just saying this is what I experienced. I don't know what it was.
Yeah,
And
facts, and you draw what conclusion you want. And as the famous tagline that I use is that, I'm going to pass the gavel to the listeners, and they can be the judge on what is real and what's not to them. So we really appreciate your story. And, I did some research because, it seems like every town in every state has a crybaby bridge story. So, with just about any folklore, there's an element of fact with any story. Very few times are you going to have someone just create an entirely fabricated story. There's always some background to it. And so my research found that there's at least 24 other bridges in Ohio alone that are considered a crybaby bridge with the story of a distressed mother who kills the baby or kills herself, and she or the baby haunts the bridge forevermore. And so, but what I found was that there were actual, factual, real cases in which people did this. They killed babies. And so, looking through some of them and just kind of hitting, some highlights of some, obviously we're not going to go through all of them, but, there's cases back, going back into the late 1800s all the way up through the 1960s in Ohio, where people have killed babies and threw them over bridges. One in Cleveland involved a guy by the name of Harry Stewart, snuck out of his home at 812 Superior Street in Cleveland and slit his 2-month-old baby's throat and threw the body into a nearby sewer. The baby was found a week later, by this bridge. They called it Suicide Pier then. And the guy fled the state and eventually arrested him. But there's all over the country and multiple cases in Ohio, where that's happened. In 1950, the body of a baby girl was found on the Kentucky side of the Ohio River down by U.S. Grant Bridge down by Portsmouth. Here's one, they just go on, but so there is some factual stories out there of people murdering babies and throwing them over bridges. So maybe there's that one story or two stories or three stories that these bridges are really, truly haunted.
Yeah.
And maybe you had the either good fortune or misfortune to experience one of those haunted bridges. I know there's a lot of people out there who'd love to experience what you did. I'm not one of them.
I don't blame you there.
Now, Judge, I don't know if this is the forum where we can maybe you can shed some light on a folklore from our county. But since we're talking about driving out somewhere and getting scared, what was the name of the lane off of oh gosh, what was the name of the road there that went from Piper's Dairy Farm to
Pig's Alley?
Pig's Alley.
Yeah, Pig's Alley is we have a road, Pig's Alley, that there's obviously some folklore behind, but there's also the story right around that area about this is, this predates probably early 1900s, where this young girl was sent out to do the nightly milking, and she took the pail, she took the gas lantern, she went out the barn to do the milking. She was out there a long time. Her father yelled out, hey, what's going on? And she didn't come, and they just figured she was trying to prank him or something like that. And so they just went to bed. Well, the next morning they get up.
So apparently she went out to do the milking and grabbed the judge and took him off the air. I'm not sure what the judge is doing, but now I'm kind of freaked out because he's disappeared twice now.
Yes.
He always disappears right as he's about to talk about or say something about what happened.
Right.
Exactly.
It's like someone snatched him, like, don't share the info.
You never know. It might be the dog man. It might find where he lived at.
It's caught up to him after all these years.
Yeah.
So Isaac, let me ask you this. So you're there at college, and you guys have, are you a freshman in college or a sophomore?
I am a junior in college.
Junior. So, gosh, I'm trying to remember back to my college days, but that's so long ago. But you guys are hanging out in the dorms, and you got, is there anybody have you shared this story with any of your college roommates, dorm mates, anybody like that you just kind of been hanging out with and shared the story? And
I think the only time I really shared this story here was they have around Halloween every year like a haunted house thing that they do in the main library where you can go through this really poorly done haunted house. And then at the end, there's kind of an event where people tell, like the staff tell haunted stories about the campus, and then students can tell, like in small groups, stories that they've heard or that they've experienced. And so I talked to a small group of people at an event about it, but that's about it.
I just am curious, because I know every time Elisa goes and talks around, people come up and share stories with her. Every time we do a podcast on some subject, people are reaching out to us and sharing with us some of their experiences. I was just curious to see if people had done the same with you, especially, being around a bunch of college kids. Some people, they've probably done some crazy stuff. And, maybe you guys could one-up each other and somebody give you their story. So, but it sounds like you're going to school with a bunch of rum-dums out there. What's going on? Just a bunch of smart guys studying? Nobody's telling ghost stories?
No, the difference is, being from a rural area, the kind of things we do is go check out ghost locations or go do stupid stuff like that.
Because there's nothing to do, and so you're just gonna
So, in Tiffin, there's not much to do. So you find ways to have fun in like almost ridiculous manners, like searching for ghosts. Most of the people that go here, like, they came from big cities where they didn't have to do any of that kind of stuff, or they just didn't think about doing that kind of stuff. So most of the students don't really have ghost stories. The staff do about the campus, but not really the students.
Oh, really?
Okay. Well, that would be interesting.
So, yeah, that's probably the only way I could get onto campus at Northwestern is to come and do like a ghost podcast, because they certainly wouldn't accept me for academic reasons. So, well, Isaac, since we have mysteriously lost the judge, he's disappeared altogether, and hopefully that's not part of the story.
He just got back.
Oh, he just got back. Well, we don't need him. So,
one second here.
Well, now here comes the judge again.
Okay, I got cut off, and I have no idea where I left off at.
That's okay. I think you were done. I think the story was over.
Yeah.
But we were just getting ready to wrap it up with Isaac. Is there anything you wanted to add?
Nope, I don't think so.
Okay.
Good story though tonight.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. Thank you
Thanks
very much.
much.
Appreciate it, Isaac.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And if you get back into Seneca County over Christmas break or next summer, and you want to take some of the crew out to Screaming Mimi Bridge, I'm sure we've got some volunteers. Not me
Oh,
or
yeah.
the judge. but-
I'll go.
That'd be a lot of fun.
And Isaac, you didn't get to meet Jerry, who's one of our teams. I don't know if you've heard of him or not.
Oh, Jerry, is he the one? I've heard it around campus. Is he the one that tackled Bigfoot?
He's the one.
He's the
Wow,
one.
I didn't know he
What
was
you're
on this
saying
podcast.
is that a man of his legendary prowess has reached Evanston, Illinois, about him tackling Bigfoot.
I think
They're always saying we need him as a linebacker. Like, our defense is so piss poor out here.
I'm sure he has some eligibility left.
Yeah,
Nah,
if he can tackle Bigfoot, he certainly can tackle J.K. Dobbins.
Well, if you can find a helmet big enough to fit Jerry, maybe.
Or he doesn't need a helmet.
All right, Isaac. Well, we'll let you
Thank
get
you
going.
very
Like I
much,
said.
and we'll let you get back to being a college student in your studies. Good luck this year.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Good night. Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, a final word. Please visit us on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/From the Shadows Podcast, and on our Instagram page at instagram.com/From the Shadows Podcast. You can visit our webpage at FromTheShadowsPodcast.GoDaddySites.com, or contribute to our Facebook discussion page called After the Shadows, and tweet us on our Twitter feed at twitter.com/podcast_from. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hearing from you all. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.